get a good quick cough out. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the T&T Podcast. Here with your boy Torres Finney and my co-host Tyler Layfield. What's up, Tyler?
Man, nothing much. Good college football playoff weekend. I'm happy with what I was able to experience and watch. I thought it was some pretty good games, and obviously our team they decided to show up and show out, so that's always good. So, man, yeah, nothing much to complain about here.
I agree with you, man. Nothing much to complain about into this going into this episode, and not much to complain about. Going into these games, we just got done with our last show, and we're gonna start it off really hot. We're gonna start off with the Rose Bowl reaction, man. Going into that game, I mean, we both had the same pick. We both thought Alabama would pull this one out, but we had two different ways about how we were going about it. Tyler thought more of a butt whipping and single-handedly.
Yeah.
I didn't see this game going overtime, but I did think Michigan was going to give them a fight up until the fourth quarter. I thought Alabama was going to pull away in the fourth quarter, which I thought was going to probably happen as the game went on.
And it looked that way. It looked that way for a moment there.
And everything happened the way I thought it could happen, except for the fact on Michigan not capitalize. I didn't think Michigan could win the way that they won. The reason why I say this, Michigan won the game by not capitalizing on the mistakes that Alabama made. They actually made even more mistakes, I feel like, than Alabama, and still didn't capitalize. So you can't muff two punts, one losing one. You can't have crazy you can't miss field goals. You can't miss extra points. You can't do that type of stuff against
stupid penalties.
Stupid penalties while you driving the ball down the field to win the game. You can't do that against Alabama. But yet Michigan made a lot of those mistakes and still found a way to overcome it. I said yesterday, we was all in a text message, group message. I said that drive that J.J. McCarthy had was special. That was a special drive down the field. It was magnificent. I mean, that catch he made, because if that guy doesn't make that catch and he misses that's an interception. Don't get me wrong, that's an interception. And
probably would have been,
we would have been looking at something totally different. But that game was phenomenal, in my opinion. And I really do believe that Michigan shocked a lot of people, including me being one of them. I did not see them beating Alabama, but I did see them get given a fight. And the fact that it went overtime even more, it was just a great and exciting game. And getting to Alabama, I'm going to be quick with this one. Alabama showed what they've been doing all year long. I think a lot of people sometimes, when you watch all the games, and this is one thing I would definitely explain in the last episode. Jalen Milroe will only do so much. He makes a lot of mistakes. He's very inconsistent. Like, if you want him to beat you running the football, Alabama's going to have a really high chance of beating you. If he has to throw the football, guess what? You got a really good shot. The problem is, see, this is the thing. When Georgia played Alabama in the SEC championship game, Georgia had a very similar game plan. The problem is, we couldn't stop the run with just the running backs. We actually were doing pretty well on Jalen Milroe, but we couldn't stop McClellan. We couldn't stop.
Remember McClellan didn't play in the SEC championship.
Not McClellan. What's the other one? That's the other running back.
They got Roydell Williams. They got Jam Miller. They got Justice Haynes.
Haynes was running on us like that.
He didn't really rep. I think he got some reps in that game. I don't know.
He did get some reps, but he didn't run on us like that. It was the other two running backs. They ran all over us.
Yeah.
Milroe didn't get his stuff to the fourth quarter. All right. We contained Milroe for majority of the game. The problem was we couldn't stop the initial run. That's the difference between what Michigan did. Michigan stopped the run, and they said, okay, if Alabama's going to beat us, I'm taking my chances on Milroe throwing the ball on us. All right. Michigan pass rush in that game was much better than what Georgia pass rush was.
Big time.
And Alabama just couldn't adjust, man. They couldn't adjust. They gave up, 7 or 8 sacks in that game. They couldn't adjust on the fly, and I think that was a huge –
which is weird.
Was huge.
Very uncharacteristic of them.
Man, I just – for this season, I disagree, man. I just think the way they have played all year long, this doesn't shock me too much.
They adjusted against us.
But against Georgia. All right, because Georgia, Kirby Smart don't adjust against Saban. What did he do too well against Arkansas? What did they do against USF? What did they do against Texas? What did they do against Tennessee? What did
Yeah.
they do against
They're
Auburn?
going to get their best game every time, and it
Yeah,
doesn't matter about
yeah. Well,
the
see,
other
that's
games.
the thing. I don't just go and just pick one game of how they played against. Yes, I do feel like Georgia probably is one of might be the best team in the nation, but it's all about matchups. And the way they match up against Georgia was perfectly fit. What has Kirby always struggled with, even when he was a defensive coordinator at Alabama?
Running
Running quarterbacks.
quarterbacks.
And
Yeah.
he still struggled with that today. All right. It's about the matchup. In my opinion, I don't think Jim Harbaugh so much struggle with running quarterbacks. Look what he has to face every year out of Ohio State. Most of the time, Ohio State, besides this year, usually have a scrambling quarterback.
Yeah.
The matchup, I think, played a little bit more into Michigan's hand. I didn't think Michigan had the athletes long enough to stay with Alabama, but I just felt like this game was more 50-50 as I originally said, but it was not something too much shocking because if you've seen how Alabama played throughout the season. But what's your reaction?
Yeah. I mean, as far as your take on how Georgia did it, I feel like Georgia. The difference between what Georgia and Michigan did was Georgia was a lot more conservative, and what really showed against us, or really what showed in this last game was Georgia's lack of talent on the defensive line. Michigan was able to exploit, and they look great. I mean, the difference you compare how Alabama's offensive line played against Michigan as compared to how they played against us. They were working our tails, dude. I mean, there was a point in the SEC championship game, Desir Stackhouse got put on his back. Like it was just total utter domination. Like it wasn't even close, man. And I felt like we definitely got their best game in that matchup. This game, Michigan seemed to really play a physical style of defense. They were able to get some pressures. They blitzed pretty well. They got the way they schemed it up, they were able to get a free guy on Jalen Milroe, and they were able to actually tackle him. I think they only had one of those typical plays against Bama where you actually get your hands on the quarterback, but the quarterback gets away, and then it ends up leading to a first down. I think I only saw one of those. The rest of them, they were actually able to get their hands on him and actually put him down, which is you just don't see that a ton against them. As far as everything with this game, though, the Rose Bowl, this could have been a lot less of a nail biter had Michigan actually taken advantage of the opportunities that they were presented throughout this game. You think about it, that extra point, if they would have actually made that extra point, the game would have already been over anyways. Theoretically, yeah, they would have been up one instead of tie game going into overtime. It was a good game though. I enjoyed it. Just looking at both sides, who I wanted to win, but who I thought was going to win, and yes, I did. Oh man, if you couldn't read through the embellishment in the group chat, Torres, I don't know.
I did.
Trying to hype up Bama and lowball Michigan in that group chat. I was doing it all on purpose. I mean,
I know you was. I know
Kobe could read through it. Jacob, he might could have read through it, but
I don't think Kobe read through. I think Kobe was so much because
Kobe has that confidence.
He does have that type of confidence, but it was baffling for him to sit there and oh, no worries. And I'm like, you're literally about to go into overtime. What do you mean, no worries? Like your offense.
Typically that plays into their favor. I mean, I kind of see what he's saying too.
I didn't see it. I see. Maybe I'm seeing it so much differently, but
I'm just used to Bama, bro. I'm not fool me once, shame on me. Fool me, can't get fooled again. I'm not gonna keep getting fooled by him.
See, that's the thing. That's Alabama against Georgia. That's what we keep getting fooled against. But when Alabama plays a team that can actually match up with them well, I think sometimes we sleep on that. I think we sometimes, and look, and with Nick Saban dominance, you have to do that. I mean, it's just like what? It's like LeBron James of now. It's like Tom Brady of then. When you go against those guys, yeah. I mean, look, yeah, you're gonna be like, well, it's not over until it's actually over. Well, you can't count them out. I agree. You can't.
Normally, I just count them out. When you play Bama, I just count them out. You're done.
I can't do that because it's also always dependent on matchups. And yes, most of the time, those teams like Alabama, those guys like LeBron or Tom Brady finds a way, but sometimes you just can't overcome certain matchups. Very similar like last year with LeBron and the Nuggets. There's just certain things you just can't overcome no matter how well you play. And I think Jalen Milroe has been that piece for Alabama where when he's on point, what was that game when he had like 5 or 6 touchdowns and he ran for like 200 yards or something?
Yeah, he had one for sure, a real big game.
He did. But guess what? Those games like that were actually in the minority. The majority is when you watch him play Texas A&M, when you watch him play Arkansas, when you watch him play Tennessee, when you watch him play Auburn. Like, dude, we can't just forget those games. And I think a lot of us was like, well, Alabama's in the championship.
Well, you also can't put too much stock into it either, though. You can't put too much stock into it. I mean, because think about it. That's where we fell into the trap when it came to the SEC championship game. Oh, well, they're coming off of not even overtime, of last second Hail Mary win against Auburn. They for sure can't beat Georgia. We already fell into that trap once before in an SEC championship game. We fell into it again this year. I mean, it's just, but like you said, maybe it's the fact that it's just Georgia. Maybe it's just the fact that
most people fall into. But see, I didn't fall. I literally said,
you picked.
I did pick Georgia, but I did say this game is as close to 50-50 as possible. It's not that you're gonna have a winner or a loser. Don't get me wrong. The way the game go, I didn't think Georgia was just going to go in there and mollywop them. I didn't think Georgia was going to win by 10.
You thought they were going to pull it out when it was all said and done. You thought they were going to pull it out. And I thought the same thing. I was on record as well. I thought they would pull it out.
That's different in the way that you think they're going to pull it out.
I did have them winning by – I think I had them winning by 10. I think I had
I can see that. 10. Because I knew – I said, look,
from now on, I'm not doing it.
In Alabama,
learn my lesson.
About Auburn and Alabama, the same way you could talk about Georgia and Alabama. Those are those type of games where – it is always, no matter the record. Heck, next year.
Well, except Auburn gets the best of them more often than Georgia does.
They do.
That's what I'm saying. Like that one, it don't matter how bad Auburn has looked throughout the whole year. They're going to show up for that. Georgia, they could be at the top of the mountain. They could be at the apex of their powers and still drop it. You know what I'm saying?
And question
it's annoying.
And when the last time? Well, take that back. I can't say that. I was about to say when the last time was there a blowout. Then I go, well, the SEC championship game.
Yeah, they blew us.
Well, most of the time, the Georgia Alabama games are fun and they're close.
They are.
But then it's like either Alabama always pulls away. So you have those. But I think, and that's more into the SEC notion that, that's the best conference. I have been on here multiple times. I love the SEC. I do think they have the best teams and the best athletes, but to say that they're their best conference, especially right now, is hard. They are a 2-team top-heavy conference, Georgia and Alabama. You got your sprinkles, you got your LSUs, you got your Missouris this year, you got your Ole Miss. Congratulations.
Yeah, I got your Ole Miss, yeah.
But that's it. And
Tennessee does some stuff here and there.
And Tennessee do here and there. But I keep telling people, like, you just can't look at those two teams and be like, that's the whole company. Look, didn't we just see last year, granted they both lost, but didn't we just see last year that both Ohio State and Michigan both made the playoffs? Didn't we see what Ohio State took Georgia to the brink of death? Literally.
They did. Now, that was a really good Ohio State team.
That was. And Michigan beat that team. And granted,
I'm not willing to call them the best conference, though, Big Ten.
No. I'm not saying Big Ten was the best.
You think if you had to pick the best conferences, who would you say? Is it Pac-12?
Pac-12 this year? It's the Pac-12.
Pac-12 is pretty good.
I said that. I've been on here multiple. I'm still going to ride with that. Mm-hmm. I still think the Pac-12. Look at that.
I mean, name them out. We got Oregon. Who else we got? We got Washington.
You got Oregon. You got Arizona. You got Washington. You got doggone it, UCLA. You got what's the other
USC, team? You can say
they
maybe
multiple ranked teams in a row. They literally played multiple ranked teams in a row. I'm gonna go to Washington. Last few games, because they play all ranked teams just about. They played. Oh, that's Michigan. Sorry, wrong one. Washington. Here we go. Washington played Oregon, Arizona, who's also ranked, USC, who was ranked, Utah, Oregon State, Oregon again. That's 6 ranked teams that you play back to back to back. 6 ranked teams. So to sit here and say that, that's crazy. So we'll definitely see.
Yeah, we got Joshua Dennis, chiming in the chat. He said, "Good stuff, Big Blue." On behalf of all UGA fans, we appreciate them. I don't know if it's behalf of all of them. I'm definitely on that train, though. I did appreciate that win. I'm on the train, and we can get into this a little bit here. And by the way, congratulations to Mr. Dennis out there getting engaged. here over our Christmas break. Congratulations to you, my man. That's awesome stuff. But the way I looked at it, here we go. Yancey, I was waiting on you, man. I was waiting on you to chime in. Is this what UGA fans do? What do we do? Be specific. What do we do? But the way I was looking at this, if a picture perfect scenario for me would be Michigan winning against Bama and Washington winning against Texas, because both of those two teams, they don't really compete with us on the recruiting trail for the most part. I mean, you could say Michigan dips down in here. I remember maybe 4 or 5 years ago, they dipped down and got a kid from Lee County that I really wanted, Aubrey Solomon. So that was one that was like a big recruiting battle. But Michigan, they do some recruiting down here. Washington, you tell me the last time Washington just came down and dipped into, the state of Georgia or really anybody in this region to really snag some talent. I mean, they may have gotten some under the radar guys, but not really those big recruiting battles that you normally see. So, I mean, just coming from a UGA fan, like that's one of these two teams winning is the ones that it's probably going to least likely hurt me. So I'm looking at it selfishly. I'm not one that's going to be the one that's like, oh, SEC, we're rooting for the SEC because that's the SEC. Screw that. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing that.
Do that.
Whatever. And then I'm not going to do the whole thing. Well, they beat Georgia, so I'm going to root for them. That makes our lives look better. No, I don't really care, man. I'm not really big. So he says, ride coattails of other teams that played the teams that beat them.
Yeah, so you saw that we picked Alabama. I don't know about that, buddy.
I picked, he and I both picked Bama on the record, Yancey.
We picked Alabama, so I mean, I don't know about riding the coattails, but I will say I didn't actively root.
I didn't actively root for Michigan. I mean, I was watching it with my father-in-law, and I love him. He's a big Bama fan. I wasn't going to sit there and be a butthole and be like, oh, yeah, go, doing all that. That to me is just obnoxious behavior. I'm not doing that, It was toward Dennis. Okay, I see it. Okay, so he's mad because Dennis, or he is making that statement because Dennis said, on behalf of all UGA fans, we much appreciate them. Yeah, I get what you're saying, Yancey. There are a lot of us out there that do root against Bama, and trust me, I do get some satisfaction out of it just because of the relationship that we have garnered over these years since Kirby's really came on. So, when Mark Richt was here, it wasn't really ever even a question. It just wasn't really. We even have a shot. Like it was just an automatic, conceding. Like we defer to you guys. That you got Saban. But ever since we've had Kirby, I feel like we actually have a shot at this. And so, yeah, I'm gonna root against you a little bit. I wasn't actively doing that during the game, though. I will say that. And I don't think Torres really was either. We don't really have a dog in the fight, per se. Like I said, if I could pick one, yeah, I was going to probably pick Michigan as who I wanted to win. And then Washington, on the other hand, too. Because Texas, you got to think about Texas, too, as a recruiting powerhouse. They're going to get some guys from Georgia. I mean, shoot, one of the guys that was making one of the biggest plays for them yesterday, Adonai Mitchell, transferred from Georgia to Texas. They are a threat. They've got money to throw behind their recruitment. So, yeah, I'd rather them not have that clout behind them. Michigan did what Georgia couldn't. I guess it's a reason to thank them, Dennis. I cheer for Georgia when Bama isn't in. Okay, well, I appreciate that, Yancey. They did do what Georgia couldn't do. You're correct. And he said Michigan wasn't injured. So he's bringing up the Bowers, McConkey stuff. You can't blame it all on it, Dennis. I've seen this stuff on Facebook, man. The calls and the injuries, and we've talked about that before. You can't put.
Well, I will say this.
We didn't execute when it was all said and done.
I do like the fact that it was a good game. I did like the fact that's what I was rooting for. I wanted a good games between both Michigan, Alabama, and Washington.
And Texas. Yeah, and we got that. We got good
that's
games.
What we got. And look. And I see Yancey and Dennis definitely going at it.
Yeah. Hey, this is fun banter. Banter.
But I mean, look, it's the real thing. I want people to understand that Georgia made mistakes that they couldn't capitalize, and when Alabama made mistakes, they couldn't capitalize on their mistakes. Michigan, and just their defense, again, we said it, Tyler. Alabama played a really good overall game because look, Milroe only completed 13 passes against Georgia. He was 13 for 23.
But man, they were big.
Every pass he completed was a huge pass.
Bomb.
So I know, a bomb. So in that game as well, you saw a lot of really good things, Dennis, that Georgia was doing, but they just couldn't capitalize and they couldn't stop when it actually made sense. Compared to Michigan, Michigan got stops when it was needed most. And I just think Michigan played a really good overall game. I don't understand, and this is another thing with me between people that watched football, college football, so much. Well, man, they ain't from the South, so the SEC ain't gonna be able to do this. Where do you think Jim Harbaugh comes and gets his skill players?
He gets some. He does get
I was
some.
about to say.
He does get some, and that's why I'm saying out of all these teams outside of Bama and Texas, Michigan, they do dip down here in the South. Because if you're smart, where are you going to recruit your players? You're not staying up north. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's some good football players from up north, but you're dipping down to the South Florida. The South Florida speed something crazy. Georgia is probably one of the most talent-rich, states when it comes to
he literally
football
holds a camp in Atlanta every year. Jim Harbaugh does.
He does.
I know a lot of people that definitely that goes to it. So I know Harbaugh comes here and recruits. But see, look, and I see Dennis and Yancey definitely going at it.
Hey, I'll say that there was a little bit of some similarity between Michigan and Georgia last night. And I think Yancey and Dennis can both agree on this a little bit. I think Torres, you can agree with it as well. There was a point in that game. It was the second half. Michigan was getting stops. They were stopping Bama, defensively. But then they get on offense and they do absolutely nothing. We can relate to that because literally to start that game off in the SEC championship game, we had one good drive, the very first one. We marched our tails down that field. We scored. And then the ensuing next 4 or 5 drives that we were able to stop Bama, we didn't do anything with it. So, it just at some point you can't make the excuses of the field goal kicker missing a field goal. You can't make the excuses of our own freaking offensive coordinator. If anything, that I would agree with that one. The offensive coordinator calling a stupid play, which, by the way, Michigan about did the same stupid stuff, bro. On that flea flicker, it was very Georgia-esque. It was very Bobo-esque in that SEC championship game. They were able to basically play their way out of these mistakes. Georgia, we just didn't do it, man. You got to admit it at the end of the day. You got to come to terms with it. We just couldn't do it. No, and there's no excuse behind it. We just didn't do what we needed to do to win the game, and that's what it ultimately comes down to. Nothing to go at it about, but he's still holding on to the SEC. Yeah, I know. And
look, I also want to say this. Yeah, you're right. You can't miss your
can't miss those and expect to beat Bama. But technically, Michigan did.
But I'm going to say this. I'm going to say this as well. All right. So when people talk about the problems in their certain games or whatever happens, like for instance, a lot of people I saw online getting at the center of Alabama or being mad at Jalen Milroe or Georgia fans being mad that we couldn't do that well on defense, get pass rush on Jalen Milroe.
Yeah.
Y'all can't get mad at something that has been going on all season. See, this is the thing that gets me. If Alabama Georgia would have played game 1, it was like, well, man, we had this happen. We had that happen. No. If it's all the way through the season, we knew the mistakes. And I agree with you, Dennis. I know. No, you're not crying. You're just stating facts.
Yeah, we understand you didn't. It's not necessarily facts, but I get what you're going at.
Nah, but I get his point. It's not about the fact that these guys are making these mistakes in the big game. It's compared to what you've seen all season. That is earlier what I said. I pointed out the games that Alabama of what the way Jalen Milroe looked yesterday against Michigan is how he has looked in majority of the games through the season. Problem is, I don't see how people can look at that game and be like, well, that's just very uncharacteristic of Alabama. No. This season might have been uncharacteristic, but the whole season of how they played in that game, that was not uncharacteristic. The way Georgia played against Alabama, that was not uncharacteristic. I think it shocks us sometimes because we're like, we feel like we're going to finally get over the hump.
Yeah.
But if you watch the game throughout the season, look what Georgia did. No, let's be honest. It's not like Georgia was mollywhopping the best teams. We had our struggles too. We had our struggles against running quarterbacks. We had our struggles a little bit against Missouri. We had our struggles a little bit against even Auburn and Georgia Tech. Like, we have our own struggles. But guess what? We learned. You just got to learn from those type of things. And I think as time goes on, people exposes those flaws. And we'll see.
There's no guarantee that they would have overturned that. I mean, I understand that some people think that was an incomplete pass, and it very well could have. But honestly, it was one of those plays, Dennis, and Dennis is bringing up this the play where Bond made the catch. Was it before half? I think it was before half, wasn't it, Torres?
Yes.
Where they got a touchdown on the in one of the ensuing plays. The ball kind of touched the ground. I still don't know if there's a definitive answer as to was it a catch or was it not. It was ruled a catch on the field, so it would have had to been pretty substantial evidence that it was not a catch in order for them to overturn that. Yancey, I want you to stay in here, man, because honestly, I'm going to take us into this thing right here. So Yancey's come out. He says he's already moved on. It was a good season. On to the next. I want to talk a little bit about because and we're going to do this for both teams that lost yesterday. But what's next for Alabama here? Okay, so let's talk about that just a minute because we bring up Milroe a lot. We see the last play of the game, the QB.
I want to hear your thoughts on the last play as well, Tyler. I want to.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about that, and then I want to talk about the future of Milroe. The last play actually, before the play was even before they ran out there in the field for the formation, of course they came out there in one formation. Michigan called a timeout. Smart move. Then they went out, they lined up, they called a timeout, Bama that is, and then they came out with that play. I did watch a little bit of the press conference afterwards. Saban said they called 3 plays. Obviously, 2 of them got nullified by the timeout, and they went with Tommy Rees went with the one of their 2-point plays. They were on the 3-yard line. It's close enough to be pretty much a 2-point play. They did it. Yeah. That's actually the play that because I was like, all right, Brian, my father-in-law. I was like, all right. What are we going with here? What's the play call? Just seeing from a Bama fan what he would say. He's like, I'd have him probably roll out to the edge and give him the option to either run it in or pass it. And you could say that might could have worked, and it could have. I said, hey, I'll get Milroe and have him run up the middle. I was like, he's big enough to truck through some tackles. He's fast enough. I'm being dead serious. That's what I said, and sure enough, it happened. I'm not saying I was right. It definitely wasn't right. I do think, and we could talk about it here. I want to see what you say too on this, but you see the angles of the plays. Latham got blew up on the edge. There was a crease there on the left side, and technically, I think that's where they said he should have went.
The guard did,
he could have went. Yeah, and there was a little crease there. Some people say the snap was messed up, and that's why he just kind of panicked. There's so many variables here. I do think putting the game in Milroe's hands in that moment, I would have done it, and I definitely would have utilized his legs. I don't think that was a wrong call. I think that's the right thing to do is let this kid use his legs, but also you can make the case here, also give him an option. And I think he technically did. He had a swing pass out of the side if he wanted to do it, but I don't know if that was the play on that. It's hard to say. These things are hard to say because, anybody can say, oh, I would have done this after the fact. When really we don't know what could have done right. But let's look and see what Yancey's saying. So he said last play was trash and the center messed that up too. That's what I'm saying. A lot of people are saying that. He said even I knew he wasn't close enough to go up the middle on top of Michigan's line was doing so good all game. They were doing good. Should have bounced outside. A lot of people are saying that Tebow jump pass would have worked. It could have. Trick plays though, getting cute. I mean, would we all be cracking on that too if it didn't work? Trying to get cute on the last play of the game.
I'm gonna say, and that's the point that Yancey made. Low snap and
I understand you, Yancey.
The low snap definitely caused the delay because of that delay. When anytime the guard is pulling, all right, you have the guard pulling is technically a little bit of a delay in itself. Most of the time, the quarterback has to take a step. Most of the time, the quarterback sometimes has to wait. But if you're doing a direct snap and the guard is pulling, you have to follow the guard onto the left side. All right. Problem is the snap was low. So now you only got 1 delay. You got 2 delays. Not only do you got 2 delays, you have your tackle getting blown up off the ball, getting pushed right.
Your best tackle.
Exactly.
Your best tackle. Your maybe first round talent tackle.
And you're talking about a team that was, I'm gonna be honest with you, talking about a team that's been going against, getting destroyed. I mean, heck, they've given up 8 sacks. They really couldn't get the run game. They got the run game going in the second half. Don't get me wrong, they did. But it still wasn't efficient enough. That's what I'm saying. And from what I'm seeing is Michigan was really good on the defensive line, and they were really good at being able to put pressure towards the quarterback and any type of pressure up the middle. All right. So I didn't like that play too well.
What would you have done?
Well, see, I feel like it was an RPO. So this is the problem that Milroe struggled with all game. You have to make Milroe think. You have to make Milroe adjust. Most of the time, once you put pressure on Milroe, he's not adjusting anymore. He's just, I got to go run. I got to go run. And now, instead of him thinking, oh, man, the middle is blown up, let me cut it to the outside. He still could have followed the guard. He still could have went outside. The wide receiver outside in the flats was wide open. Yeah. They had two wide receivers going to they had two wide receivers on both DBs. It been one-on-one with the safety. All right. For 3 yards, I probably like Alabama chances, but Milroe couldn't adjust to that. Now, granted, there's a lot of things going on, a lot of things going all over the place. You can't just sit there and say, oh, that's easy. That's a couch coaching. All right. But some quarterbacks that are really good cerebrally that can make adjustments on the fly, you would think a quarterback like that can make that. But, I just think when you put pressure on a guy like Milroe, it's hard for him to adjust. And I just think, oh, man, he saw, he go my only chance, and he just tried it. And I just don't think that was the best play call overall. Putting it in his hands to throw might not have been, but we'll see. What we saw.
I will say in these head-to-head matchups, you got Dennis here saying, the Bama fans keep saying that they flat out are just better than us. He's talking about UGA and are trying to use the 3-point win to justify that. However, the score is not indicative of who was better because of all the extenuating circumstances that I previously discussed. I get you. I kind of see that. I mean, you can play de facto. Georgia had a 63-3 win against Florida State. Alabama lost their bowl game. We're better. You could say that, and you might can make an argument, but head to head, it does mean a lot, man. And I think that does have to mean something at the end of the day. If you can't beat the team head up, maybe they are better than you. I don't know, man. Yeah, Dennis, until we're doing this thing, I don't know. I don't know if you can really confidently say we're better than Bama. You have to win that one when it's all said and done, man.
I use this argument all the time. When New England went 18-0 and they lost to the 10-6 Giants.
Yeah.
Who you think probably had the better team?
Better team was definitely New England, man.
New England. But who won the game on the day?
And
see,
exactly. That's a great comparison.
And you have to sometimes separate. Sometimes certain teams match up better than the teams you played all season long. And I think Alabama's good. Don't get me wrong. And look, I think a game, if you play 10 times between Alabama and Georgia, I'll be honest with you, I think Georgia might slick win 6-4. All right?
I think they would get the majority.
I think they'll get the majority.
But that's like out of a series, though. But the thing is, it comes down to that one, and I feel like that one is just too much pressure on us. And
that's too much pressure on them. And Alabama play. And Alabama played their best game in the SEC championship game.
We played our worst game of the season in that.
And I feel like Georgia played a really bad half. I want to say Georgia played a really bad half. They played a really bad half. And if you take away that, but then again, like I said, you're getting back into the hypothetical because I'm taking away from.
You're right. It isn't too even. He said, I don't know. Last 6 weeks, you're right. I just think if you put it through a series, I do agree with
we talking about the series with the same team because look at all of those games. I mean, it's not like, again, besides the SEC championship in 2021 or the 2020.
Oh, wait, yeah. When we went to Bama and Stetson had to start, we got tore up. We got our pills.
2017, all right, 2018, obviously. National championship, this year's SEC championship game. There's been a lot of games where that game could have easily go the other way for any team.
Yeah.
It just more times than not, it went the way for Alabama. All right. To say that a game, yes, the team won, yes, they're better on that day. But to defend and say, man, we're that much better than that team, you can't necessarily say that. You won by the brink of eye. Again, I'm not gonna sit here and say Michigan is that much better than Alabama. They'll beat Alabama every single time. No. They did beat them when it mattered. But no. We just can't go out here and say that. But from depending on their strength of record, schedule, how they've looked, they're undefeated, 14-0. They beat Alabama in overtime, playing one of their worst games. Guess what? They can say that. And the same thing for Alabama against Georgia. Alabama can say that. They beat them in one of the biggest games of the year, SEC championship game. You can't sit here and default that. So I see everybody's point, but you really just can't make that case. Alabama was the better team. Congratulations to Michigan. Michigan is now going on the national championship. I'm excited for Jim Harbaugh. Jim Harbaugh has coached in the Super Bowl, and now he's about to coach in the national championship. I don't know how many coaches have done that, to be honest with you. So that is very special. That is really special on what Jim Harbaugh has been able to do. He's come to me. He's beaten Ohio State 3 years in a row at that. Then made the playoffs 3 years in a row. He has done things. That I just you got to marvel, man. You got to marvel.
Yeah.
especially after what was his name, Brady Hoke, when he was the coach at Michigan, how bad he had Michigan looking, and what
It was
Harbaugh's
pretty bad.
been able to do. Props to him, man. And they roll with him. This has been what, a 7-year thing. They roll with him, man. 6 or 7 years, maybe longer than that. Got to be longer than that, right?
Yeah.
9 years.
So what I was wanting to bring up, Jalen Milroe. Okay, we ended up, started the year off shaky. They benched him. We saw the ugly USF game. Wasn't pretty. Milroe was obviously the guy to go with. He led this team to where they went this year, and it was a big, a big thing for them, to make it to where they were with kind of. It's hard to say how bad they were when you're winning that many games, like when you only lose one game, but yet you didn't play that great. I mean, everybody and their mama can notice this isn't a normal Bama team, and a lot of Bama fans say this was like a rebuilding year kind of thing. But with how everything played out, with how everything ended, is it safe to say that Milroe's definitely, without a shadow of a doubt, going to be your starting QB next year?
If I'm Alabama,
I want to hear what Yancey says on this too.
I would definitely like to hear what Yancey says, but if I'm Alabama, I will say this is going to be a quarterback race. Now I'm not just going to sit here and be like,
he said, nope.
Milroe is the automatic starter, but I feel like we're in the same situation that Jalen Hurts was in 2000. What was that? 2017, 18 that year. And the reason why I say that, Jalen Hurts got them boys to the national championship. And I think Milroe, until proven otherwise, because he's going to be on thin ice, I think, next year. They're going to believe in Milroe. They're going to trust in Milroe. But I feel like Milroe is going to be on thin ice, and there's going to be another quarterback on the helm. All right, Milroe, if you're not stepping up, we got somebody that's going to come in and take your spot.
Yeah.
And I think they're in that same situation once again. Especially with the schedule they're playing. Got to play Texas, got to play Oklahoma, got to play Georgia, already got to play LSU, Auburn. You got to play those hard. You got a lot of hard games next year, and it's not going to get any easier for Alabama. So we definitely going to see who them playing quarterback wise is going to be really interesting.
Yeah, the competition is going to be Ty Simpson if he decides to stay. I mean, you can never say for sure if somebody's going to stay or not. Especially nowadays with transfer portal, NIL, all that kind of stuff, that you just really never know. I don't think they're going to bring in a transfer unless it's in the second window. I doubt they get one in before the end of the day tomorrow. Tomorrow's when the first transfer portal window closes. We could see maybe they can add somebody. I don't know. That'd be very quick. It might have to be in the second portal window. But you also got what's his name? Julian Sand coming in, who's one of the top quarterbacks in the nation. And he's pretty good from all accounts. He won the Elite 11. He looked good. He's a very accurate guy. It's just hard to, we've seen it before. A true freshman at Alabama, starting quarterback, and they do pretty good. So maybe he could be the next one. We'll see. But there could be some competition there. We could see some stuff, happening. I just want to see where the loyalties lie at the end of the day, because I know even us as Georgia fans, when we won that first national championship, we were still saying, "Oh, well, Stetson, we might could take somebody better." So I think we're starting to see that a little bit with Bama as well. We do got some people commenting. I know Dennis is still talking about the injuries and everything like that. The typical. Man, injuries, you got to get through them. It's just part of life. It's part of life, man. They had a running back out. Their best running back was out. So you can't blame everything on injuries. Yancey also said you're very hypothetical. I'm not a big hypothetical guy. You can ask Torres. I say that all the time. I don't do hypotheticals. I don't play that game. It's just stupid. I don't know. Like, I could sit here and make hypotheticals about anything.
Tyler don't play hypotheticals, but he showed up. He is showing up definitive on his decision. Waiver. Like, this man was 10 toes down.
I was 10 toes down.
Blow out Michigan. I'm like,
I felt very confident about that. You could pull now, some of those were exaggerations and was embellishment just because of how Kobe did us last year with Ohio State. Oh man, y'all are going to easily beat them. You remember how he was downplaying Ohio State? So I was like, I'll give him a little taste of his own medicine. I'll downplay Michigan as well. So I did that.
Well, see, this is the thing. Look, and then you know what? Also, you remember, Tyler? You also remember this too. You did make a point. You said, would this be a little bit of a disappointment if Alabama didn't beat Michigan? I want to hear your thoughts on that.
There's our buddy Kobe Reed.
That's
There
right.
he is.
Hey, I want to hear Tyler's thoughts on that. You made a point last show.
What?
And you said it would be a little bit of a disappointment for Alabama if they didn't beat Michigan. And I said, I don't know about that, because I think of how far they've come in this season.
You're
and
right. You're
I
right.
thought the Michigan game would be 50-50 anyway. But do you still stand on that point? Alabama not getting to the national championship going through Michigan.
I do think I think I would be a little upset if I were a Bama fan, because I'm upset as a Georgia fan, because I feel like this. God almighty, looking at these games, I was just like, man, well, I feel like we could have easily. I'm not saying easily against Michigan, but we seem to be a little bit of Michigan's kryptonite, kind of like what Bama is to us. So, yeah, Jacob Killian turning in. How about them dogs? Yes, that's where it's at. That's
yes,
we love.
Right. I remember Yancey saying that last show. I do remember him saying
that. Yeah, I know. Yancey, you were worried about Michigan. You're correct. I was, like I said, I was trying to give Kobe a little bit of his own medicine, downplaying Michigan like he downplayed Ohio State last year. So I think I came through on it. But yeah, I do see it a little bit of as a letdown, because I do think Alabama would beat Washington. I really do. As physical as they're, I don't know how. I mean, we're going to get into it here in a minute. I want to see how confident you are in Washington. But as physical as their corners are, and I mean, Michigan kind of said the same thing. Their corners were real physical yesterday as well. But as physical as they are, as physical as a team as they are, I just don't know. I don't know, man. Maybe I'm doubting Washington a little too much. Best case scenario for me would be Washington winning this thing, because, I mean, at the end of the day, like I said, they're not really a big threat to us recruiting or anything like that. Kobe did team come in. He said overcame a lot of adversity this year, ended up a lot better considered we were written off after. Which, hey, you got to give it to Bama, man. I'll say it here, man. Hey, before the season was even started, I wrote you off. Remember, I had you listen to Texas. I had y'all listen 3 games, I want to say. So, man, I already had you wrote off. You're right. The way the team went after it this year, even after the loss, even after the ugly USF game, even after the ugly wins against Arkansas, Tennessee, Auburn, it made it to the college football playoff. That's a big win. That's a big win. So I got to give you respect. Props. Hats off to the boys down in Bama. What is this? Keever. Committee should have taken into account how bad Bama Center was, just like they did with that pitch.
That was bad.
Keever, I love you, man. God, I love you. Yeah, he was. Guys, yeah, I feel like he's taking a lot of heat. We saw this kid play when he was in high school. When Buford. Oh man, Dennis said exactly. Oh, that's hilarious. Dennis, he's not being literal, my man. He's joking with you. Keever's a troll. But yeah, I feel like he's taking a lot of heat. He did have some bad snaps, but I'm not willing to put this whole game on him. It's not the whole game that falls on him. I feel like when we lost to Texas, I just wanted us to beat Auburn, and that was good. Okay, yeah. Absolutely agree on Bama beating Washington. Washington is talented, but not
what I'm talking about here.
Hey,
what I'm talking about.
I do agree, though. I tend to agree, and I understand. So Jacob Torres is a big guy that's against the SEC bias.
I am, I'm a Georgia fan. I don't like SEC bias because each team is their own individual. You can't just be, oh, that's the conference. No. Because if we all being frank, if we want to be honest, like these teams are recruiting around to beat Alabama in the SEC. And let's be honest, if you can beat Alabama in the SEC, what are your chances of probably winning the national championship? Pretty freaking high. All right? Like it's Alabama and everybody else. That's how it's always been for the SEC. Now Georgia is now going up along those ranks. You have your sprinkles, your LSUs here and there. Or y'all Auburn randomly with Nick Marshall. You'll have a random team out of nowhere.
Pop out.
You'll have some pop out.
A&M, had their Manziel moment, right?
Yeah, and then you have a Texas A&M with a Manziel moment. Yeah, you'll have that. So
you have some moments where they pop up. But I mean, I do tend to agree with Jacob. I just think the style of play and everything like that. It's the same reason I picked Georgia to absolutely smoke Oregon in the opening game. Was it last year or was it the year before? It was last year, wasn't it?
Last year, Oregon.
Yeah, last year. And a lot of people were thinking it was close, and this was even coming from people that are SEC fans. They're fans of other SEC teams like Tennessee. They were telling me how close Oregon was going to keep it. I said, closer to that game, I was just like, I don't see it. And good God, if we didn't back that up. I don't know if I'd be willing to say that Alabama would smash Washington, because I do think they present some problems with their wide receivers, but I do think their DBs can kind of hang with or at least fudge up the system a bit, jam them up at the line of scrimmage, that kind of thing. But Washington's got some dogs at one.
Dude, how do you stop Washington pass game? Like
Dallas Turner, Boygbe,
I don't see it.
Kool-Aid, Terrion Arnold. What's the kid's name that came in against
monster? It'll remind me a lot like watching the Clemson versus Alabama game. Washington they're not blowing them out, but Washington would beat Alabama in my opinion. Yeah, they're way more disciplined.
Washington's a good team. I'm not willing to downplay them that much, but I do think it'd be hard to take.
I'm telling you, y'all
Washington against Alabama.
Biased too much.
Hey,
man.
Call it what you want. I may be biased, and I know I am to a degree, but it's just I've seen it for so long. It's just hard to go against it.
You seen it, yeah. You seen it. So look, playing Notre Dame, playing Georgia, like come on. I mean, yes, the Nick Saban reign for sure was it, but have we not seen these last few seasons? Have we not seen what they look like? I think we keep forgetting that. I think we keep like we just like, oh man, we're just gonna ride off what they've done in the history. What? I don't agree with you, Yancey. I do not think Bama beats Washington.
The thing is, we'll never know.
We'll never know. The only time they beat Washington when they beat them in the playoff when they had what's that quarterback name? Washington. Was it Jake Brown?
It may have been Browning. Yeah, it may have been Yancey. Vet that, man. Who was the quarterback when y'all played them in the playoff?
SEC like what? No.
I'm not gonna lie to you. And man, I guess I'm agreeing with the chat a lot more today. I do think their defense is pretty SEC like. I'm not gonna lie. I'm kind of with Dennis on. They've got a legit defense, man. They got a legit defense.
So anytime you got a good team, a good defense, a good offense, man, you're like an SEC team. What? Like that don't make sense.
That's the standard. They set the standard, man. Kiefer said all Big Ten natty SEC fans are shaking. I'm shaking in my boots.
From one team. From one team. That's crazy to me.
Yancey, I was talking about when y'all played Washington in the college football playoff all those years ago, who was the quarterback for that team? So just chime in whenever you remember, you figure that out. Oh yeah, now I would love to see the game itself. I think it would be interesting to watch Washington show up against Bama. We still have a bigger bracket next year to look for. That it will be interesting. It will be interesting to see how the new playoff.
Yeah, a lot of things gonna change next year, man. A lot of things gonna change next year.
Yeah.
But look, we definitely need to get to the
We do. I was like, we all this talk about Washington. Let's swing it over to the Sugar Bowl. Washington versus Texas. I was thinking same thing, Torres. I was ready to move on to that one as well. We spent a lot of time on that. But it was good. It was good. And this one, the way it started off the game, it was like, man, this is gonna be back and forth. This is gonna be a barn burner. And it was looking like that for a while. Washington was able to capitalize on some defensive stops in the second half, get up by 10, and then get up by 13. They kind of took their foot off the gas, started playing a little bit more conservative, and really made this game a tight one. And it came down to the last second.
You talking about the worst way to end a game possible? Washington
was awful.
Did it, and then I know a lot of people are mad at Sarkisian on how he coached at the end. But I'm like, let's be honest, Texas fan, y'all shouldn't even been in that position. Like, let's be honest. Watching that game, you had the two fumbles. All right, that was bad, both in their own side of the field. You're driving the ball down the field, you're doing really good, and then out of nowhere, boom, you fumble the ball. Like, I feel like stuff like that, you can't do that, and it's hard to capitalize on those type of things. Very similar. See, looking at this Texas team, they made a lot of mistakes, which they've been doing throughout the season. They just been that much better. All right. Now, getting a chance to see like a Washington get ready to play a Michigan. What has Michigan been one of the best teams? They're one of the least penalized teams. They're one of the least turnover teams. They don't make JJ McCarthy is the definition. Well, you know what Cam Newton talk about game manager? That's the true definition of a game manager. He don't make those type of mistakes. He's not going to force the ball anywhere. He's going to take what's given to him. So when you're not giving those mistakes to a team like Washington, we're going to see how they're able to respond. Now, looking at the last 10 games of the season for Washington, every single game has come down to the last possession. All of them have been single one possession games. So Washington, if you want to talk about somebody that is going to be prepared to play in a really close game, it surely is going to be Washington. And Washington showed off against Texas. They did a lot of good things. Michael Penix, I ain't going to lie to you. The way he played in that game, it reminded me a lot like how C.J. Stroud did against Georgia. He just boosting up his draft stock. I
He
mean,
was
I know a
insane.
lot of people talking about Jaden Daniels, but Penix, good.
Penix was legit. Penix was legit.
Woo!
He was smooth with it, bro. He was putting it on the money.
He was good. Those deep throws, bro. Oh my god.
Tight windows.
Dude.
Just laying them in there.
I was like, this might be the best quarterback, again. And like people saying, I saw a lot of good comments that people were talking about. Jane Daniels. Yes, he won MVP. Yes, he had incredible yards. Yes, he had a lot of touchdowns. Yes, he had a lot of completions.
We were both on record on the show saying Jaden Daniels for Heisman, man.
He did say Jaden Daniels. But is that another result of SEC bias? Is that another result of that?
I think it was more the stats this time. I think it was more the stats. I really do.
I can see that.
The stats were ridiculous.
It was the stats because
really the next guy stats wise was Bo Nix. I think really, if you were kind of comparing them, I thought. I mean, you can vet me on that, but I thought like as far as the stats,
Penix was the runner up. Michael Penix was the runner up.
Okay.
So
yeah, and it was because mainly that ended up coming down to the reason he ended up being runner up. He defeated freaking Bo Nix twice.
That's true. That's true.
So Kiefer said he had similar numbers to Burrow. Is that Penix or is that
no, that was Jaden Daniels.
Which is ridiculous. But then again, Burrow also was, not losing.
And I know some people want to talk about winning games matter, and it does. It does. Don't get me wrong. But when your stats are so like their offense was so good all season long. The only game they didn't have a really good game was only against Florida State, the first game of the season. And you take away that, they scored over 28 points against everybody. Even they scored exactly 28 against Alabama, but they were dropping points on everybody. So I think their offense definitely didn't matter. Winning games didn't even matter until the playoff became a thing.
I mean, yeah, technically, some Manziel won it with 4 losses. You brought it up before. RG3, he won it with some losses on his record.
3 losses.
Kiefer might have a point here.
I don't remember him winning it with 4 losses, but he surely did win it. I do remember. Let me see.
Mm-hmm. But with that being said,
Manziel won it with 2 losses. Let's get that right.
I figured Kiefer would know his Manziel stuff, man.
I'm about to say,
big A&M guy back in the day, going to that A&M Duke bowl game that year. Was it the Peach Bowl? I think it was. I remember he was big. Who wasn't a big Manziel guy?
About that. Yeah,
Bama fans were not Manziel guys. I know that they did that.
No, they was not.
But I freaking loved him. I thought it was awesome.
But what's your overall thoughts on the Washington Texas overall game?
Great game. Better than I expected. Great ending. Honestly, we saw the Stars play. It was cool. I mean, really, I think Washington with the defense is what shocked me with them. They were actually able to get some pressure. They were tipping balls left and right. Like I can't tell you how many balls they batted down from Ewers. And I think that made a huge difference in this game. It was good that they were able to actually have a chance to win later in the game, Texas that is. And they did the right thing toward the end of the game with who they were targeting. I mean, if the game's on the line, you know who you need to be going to, and that's Adonai Mitchell. He's built for that kind of moment. He did it at Georgia, 3 times. Made big catch against Bama, big catch against Ohio State, big catch against TCU, even though technically we didn't really need it that game. But he's just a guy when it matters most. I think somebody said he has 5 in 3 3 years of being in the CFP. He has 5 touchdown receptions, which is pretty huge. He's just he's just a guy when it matters most, when the lights are brightest, he actually comes out and plays, and he's a dog. I love him. He's actually a good guy. One transfer that I actually like, I have to harp on that for a moment. I'm glad that Bama lost just because freaking Jermaine Burton gets to lose and he gets to take his butt to the house. I'll say that much. Yancey, I don't know how you feel about Burton, but he's one reason I definitely was running against Bama. I can't stand that son of a gun. Good God Almighty, he gets on my nerves. So I don't know. He's one reason I was glad they lost. And boy, did you see his tweet after the game?
I did.
Yeah, he even had the nerve to bring up Georgia. It's just funny, man. It's just funny. After all the crap he did after this championship game.
Why does he have so much resentment against him?
I think I don't know, man. He's kind of had a butthole attitude since he's left. Probably some fans have said some stuff. He probably didn't like the way things went down at Georgia. So the tweet was, let me pull this up for you. So I'll
Yeah,
read it out.
it's weird to see so much resentment for a team that you've played with and won a national championship with. Heck, most guys were like, "Hey, at least I respect them."
And there was a bad
Unless they did
falling
him
out.
wrong. If they did him wrong, I mean, I can see his point, but
So here's the tweet. I'm not able to pull it up on the screen, but I got it here on my phone. Love this team. Michigan did they thing with a little 100 emoji. If your team wasn't there, it was for a reason. Don't even know how y'all have the urge to even type on here, but that's the fan part of it. Hashtag RTR, Roll Tide Roll. Forever changed my life. Forever thankful for this program. Basically, calling out Georgia fans for kind of talking trash to them. And don't get me wrong, there definitely was some trash talking going on from Georgia fans. He's one guy that we resent. I know he resents us. Kind of left on the stars. When you go from Georgia to Bama, it's just like man, you really stabbed me in the back. I feel like Michael Corleone when Fredo turns his back on the family in Godfather Part 2. And sorry for the spoiler for those of y'all that haven't seen the movie, but you were my family, man, and you went to the opponent. You went to the enemy. You're an op now, and that left a bad. Yeah, it was definitely a sneak diss. It was definitely a sneak diss. That left a bad taste in my mouth. I don't think things ended well with him at Georgia. Obviously, wasn't getting the ball a ton. I don't think him and Stetson had the best relationship in the world. And then he had some blow up games at Bama. I don't know if he gets drafted or when he gets drafted. If he does get drafted, I can't imagine that he's going to be a high draft pick. I know he's out of years of eligibility. But he's just, I don't know, all the antics on the sidelines, all the stuff after the games when he punched the girl in the mouth last year at Tennessee. It's a lot of stuff, man, that makes you it adds up on this dude. But yeah, man, that's one thing I had to throw in there. I just had to. So let's swing it into the last thing here. Orange Bowl thoughts. So we talked about the two big college football playoff games yesterday. Let's talk about our team a little bit, and that's UGA, man. UGA taking on Florida State and give him. We want to hear from you guys. If y'all have anything y'all want to add into it, if you want to say, take away from it that the players were out, all that kind of stuff. But really, what I take away from this, Florida State's got a problem. Florida State has a culture problem, and I don't know. We'll see how they recover from it. But when it was a good thing they brought in the transfers because it got them to this point. It was able to jumpstart the program to a point where they were able to actually go undefeated for a season and things like that. And there were players out on both sides, like Yancey says. We had some players. It wasn't to the degree that Florida State did. And I understand they were salty. They didn't make the playoff. We were on record on the show saying we think Florida State should have been in anyways. We were kind of on that boat too.
still do believe it. Still do believe it, regardless.
So I understand being upset, and maybe that being a reason behind why you want to sit out. But they had a lot of guys automatically. We talked about it. We covered it when we were previewing the show. A lot of top-notch talent. Top tight end, top two wide receivers, top running back. They had another running back out. He was out for injury, I believe. Top quarterback obviously out with injury. Then the next quarterback,
17 starters out. 17.
And two of them. This is where I get with the culture problem. Two of them, Fisk, number I think it's 55, big white guy that's on the defensive line, made some big plays against Louisville. Had a game of his life against them in the ACC championship game. Great game by him. Him and Joshua Farmer, who's known to be a prima donna, who entered the portal early December for a couple hours and they took his name out. It was obvious that this was a money grab. I'm going to throw my name in the portal just to see if I can get you to throw some more money at me. There's a lot of pocket watching going on at Florida State, and they see how much these kids are getting that are being brought in. We all were hearing the numbers about KJ Bolden when he was getting.
I'm about to say, you think KJ moved because of that?
Say that again.
You think KJ moved because of that?
I don't know, man. KJ, there's a lot of variables there. He kind of cracked me up. There was a tweet about somebody was interviewing him. He's like, "I'm glad I made the decision I did because man, being on the other side, yeah, it's like that was rough." But yeah, man, they had those two guys, Fisk and Farmer. They went through pregame warmups and then they decided they're not going to play. And that was besides the other guys that are into the transfer portal that are taken out because of the draft, injury, things along those lines. So it was pretty rough, man. I'm not gonna lie to you. The culture there has to be pretty down if all those guys sit and then you decide to play that game. You get your tail tore up to the nth degree. This is the biggest blowout in bowl game history. I feel like, right? Ain't that what it was?
It's the
60.
It's the second because we did that. No, we didn't because we beat.
No, this is the most. This is the
the
most.
This is the most. That's right. This is because
Yeah.
it's
So
60.
I mean,
It's 60.
it's just it just wasn't a good look, man. We were hitting on all cylinders. I was glad we got to see the backups play some. It was good seeing Gunnar Stockton, play, get into the game, play a little bit. Good seeing some of these young guys get in and play. They were making some big plays. They were looking good. It helps you kind of look at the future a little bit. Florida State, I will say this. What's his name? What's the guy's name? Brock Glenn. Brock Glenn, the third string quarterback that started the game and played the game. I know he caught a lot of crap, but I actually kind of thought that I saw some good stuff from him. I thought he, for the most part, he was putting some balls on the money. I'm not willing to say he's going to be your eventual starter, things like that. He could be, but I don't think it's as bad as what some Florida State fans were thinking. I was on the phone with my buddy Maloney, he's a big Florida State fan, and he texted me. Well, he actually texted me 5 minutes into the first quarter, and at that point it was a game. They had actually stopped us when we went for it on fourth down. He's like, man, this is going to be a good game. I was like, still too early. Still too early. And I told him that.
I was confident. I said, there's no chance Florida State can keep this close. I said, not a chance.
I was like, it's still too early. They did get the field goal. It wasn't a shutout, so that's good for their end. But I was on the phone with him when the McConkey play happened, when they were going to attempt the double pass. He called me to talk. Threw it to McConkey. McConkey obviously doesn't find anybody. He scrambles around, looks like Bad News Bears out there from Florida State's defense, and gets into the end zone. He was just, you bums. And then he just hangs up the phone. He left one of our group chats. It was just it was a big day, man. It was bad.
Tyler, I'm gonna tell you, man, that game was I didn't after halfway through the second, I said I'm not watching no more because I watched it all. Because I already knew how I was going to eventually. I kept update, saw some highlights, but that's about it.
I like me. I like to see those, especially second half. You get to see all these new guys.
That's true. The future.
I want to see what they look like. So
I'm gonna tell you this though, because I know a lot of people like to bring this game up. I saw a lot of people bringing this game up. Acting like fools.
Go ahead and drop it.
Well, C33, that show they didn't deserve it. Or they were look. It is a culture problem. All right. See a lot of Alabama fans bring up the case that Bryce Young and all their boys played last year against Kansas State. All right. They did. Because Nick Saban doesn't have a culture problem. All right. If you did that to a team that has so much, Mike Norvell does not have the same type of control over his program compared to what Kirby has over Georgia, compared to what Saban has over Alabama. We know this. Everybody knows this, okay? So to tell that, oh, man, well, it's their fault they didn't have the starters playing. Yeah, it probably is their fault. But guess what? These guys didn't make the playoffs. A lot of these guys are seniors and have an opportunity at
They would have played. They would have played otherwise. If they made the playoff, they were playing. You're talking about 2 first-round wide receivers, possibly. I think Keon Coleman's a first-round guy. I know some people want to argue no. Johnny Wilson, he could be. He's going to either way. He's going to be at least a day 2 guy, probably just a huge body frame. The freaking running back Benson, he's probably at least a day 2 guy. Yeah, Jaheim Bell's probably a day 2 guy. You got some defensive.
And then why are we making this argument about why Florida State didn't deserve it when they literally would have had a great opportunity if they would have played their starters against any of these teams? I feel like I don't see Florida State getting blown out by any of these teams. I'm gonna be straight up honest with you. I don't care. I've seen their defense play. I've seen how they look. That defense is fast, and that defense gets after it. I think they would have gave anybody a tough game. Now, granted, yes, the problem would have been what could they have done offensively.
Yeah.
That would have been a problem.
And it presented itself in this game, too. They were doing the whole switching quarterbacks, bringing in the other dude to do some wildcat. It wasn't helping. That wasn't helping. It wasn't helping anything.
And I do believe this as well. Would the game, if Florida State would have played their starters, how would that game would have went? I still think Georgia would have beat them.
It wouldn't have been to that degree.
3-3, but they still would have beat them. And that's how much confident I feel like Georgia was the best overall team this year. If you want to say top to bottom, offense, defense, special teams. All right. Yeah. Yes, we had a bad game. Yes, we lost Alabama. Don't get me wrong. Yes, I know that. But I think I like us matching up against Michigan. I surely like us against Texas, and I surely like our matchup against Washington. So like it just look, we're gonna have 12 teams next year. All right, we're definitely gonna see how these games look.
Yeah, Dennis, I definitely want you to stay here because I got a hypothetical for you. I definitely got a hypothetical. Yeah, so Yancey said Georgia still would have won by 2 touchdowns easy, maybe more. I agree with you, Yancey. And Dennis, I want you here. So here's a hypothetical for you. Let's hear this out because I already know what Yancey's answer.
I like to hear it.
Let's just say Florida State made it in over Bama, and they played Michigan in the first round. And Dennis, I want to hear your thoughts on this one. What do you think the result would have been? Florida State wouldn't have had all those opt-outs. They probably would have had a lot of guys not hit the transfer portal. Nope. They probably would have their second-string quarterback. Now I don't know how much.
Rob Baker would have stayed.
They would have stayed. Yep. They would have had all this stuff happen.
Would have had a whole month to prepare.
Mm-hmm. So, what do you think the difference in the game would have been? Do you think what do you think the score would have been, and what do you think? How do you think Florida State would have played against this Michigan team that we saw last night? I mean, I'll tell you what I think. I still think Michigan wins that game. I wasn't going to pick Florida State to win any of those games. I'm just going to be honest with you. I wouldn't have picked them to win any of them. But if I had to probably put a score on it, I mean, oh man, I had Florida State. Yeah, my buddy, he sent me a thing. Technically, Brock Glenn had more passing yards than Jalen Milroe did against Michigan, against Georgia. And what else was it he said? So hang on, I got to pull this up because it was funny. Obviously, you can't really compare them, head to head like that. But let's see here. Yes. So, yeah, total yards, 139 for Brock Glenn, 116 for Milroe against Michigan. What do you think it would have been? How bad do you think they would have lost to this Michigan team?
I think Michigan would have won the game, but I think we sleep a lot on Florida State defense. We saw a very defensive game anyway between.
You think they would have played better defense than Bama?
I think it would have been very similar. It would have been very similar. Yes, I don't see much that Michigan could have done overall differently. But Florida State has a really, really, really good defense, man. It's literally one of the top ranked defenses in the country. Now whatever Rodmaker would have done, that's a whole different story. I can't speak on that because I don't know what they would have been able to do. Now, having Benson, like we saw what the run game at Alabama.
Benson can run it. Benson's a great running back.
I think Florida State would have depended on the run a lot against Michigan.
Would have had to.
But I think that's the only thing we really could have saw. But overall, I think the game, I don't see it would have been overtime. I think Michigan probably would have won by 10, maybe
in regulation.
8 or 10 points, 8 to 10 points. I would have saw that.
Also, Florida State, they had that one wide receiver that did pretty good too. Portier against Georgia, he had a couple big catches.
I remember him.
Maybe he would have done something. Who knows? Yancey said, I mean, Bama's line wasn't protecting him very well, but his awareness wasn't top notch either. I think they might could have gotten some pressure, man. They might could have gotten some pressure on. I mean, if Michigan was, I think maybe Florida State would have gotten some pressure as well.
Florida State would have got pressure for sure. They would have got pressure for sure.
So here's the ultimate question: did the committee get it right?
To say that the committee get it right is, I mean,
it delivered a better game, a better product on the field, probably. We got it overtime.
They got it right for the fans. I don't think they got it right for the players on the field. I don't care what nobody says. Florida State deserved to be in the playoffs. I do not think Florida State should have been kept out. I 100% disagree with you, Yancey. You are undefeated Power 5 conference champion. I just cannot see why you would have put them out. But hard to say. Look, regardless of what we say, guess who's in the national championship? Number 1 and number 2.
Man,
still the same team.
So it really
wouldn't matter regardless at this rate. So
I tend to agree. I tend to agree with you because you know where I stand on the Florida State thing. I feel like Florida State got shafted. I still stand on that to this day. The result would have still been the same. Michigan would have won. So obviously with that, it wouldn't have been as close. So it wasn't better probably for TV ratings and money like they did. And my God, can we talk about how during the games, man, after kickoffs, they were going to commercial break after kickoffs. That got on my nerves, man. The NCAA was really milking these advertisements and everything. Yancey says in a nutshell, they got it right. probably for finances they did. You could say I'll say that they got it right, but like I said with Torres, for the integrity of the game, I don't think they got it right. But that's just a LOL. Layfield Dennis said, "Yeah, that crap got on my nerve. Maybe that's the old man in me. I didn't want to see all those commercials." All right, so last thing we're going to go into here: updated CFP championship picks. So I was wrong on both of my picks, and when we went through Torres, you at least got one of them right. So Yancey said, "Did the best 4 teams go or not?" That's a good question.
No, the best 4 teams did not go because Georgia was left out.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
And I understand why Georgia was left out. I'm not going to sit here and argue that we should have got in.
There you go. I'm not making a case for Georgia.
We're not going to sit here and make excuses.
I'm not making a case for them. But if you want to say the best 4 teams, which has never, ever been done off of, as we know, that's just not the case. He's right. Dennis, he's right. Now, Auburn did play terrible. But yes, the Jordan Travis thing, yes.
Just eliminating the FSU convo.
They deserve to go in.
I'm trying to follow you on that because we talked about this in the episode after the committee made the decision. The committee's never put in the best 4 teams. They've never done that, Yancey. There's a precedent behind this. They've never done that. You think Cincinnati? Hey, the year you beat Cincinnati, were they a top 4 team in the nation? Yancey, they were not. Survey says that's not true.
Tyler, do you remember the year when Notre Dame played? You remember they put Notre Dame in the ACC. Notre Dame had beat Clemson in the regular season. Clemson had beat Notre Dame in the ACC championship 34-10. And guess what they still did, Tyler? Guess what they still did?
Boy.
They put them jokers in the playoff.
Yeah, Notre Dame gets so much, man.
Don't even get me started. I'm not about to get started.
So Yancey said Georgia's arguably one of the best 4. I don't even think it's arguably. I think they are one of the best 4. But and that's just me, and that is biased. But FSU isn't. I would agree with you. If we're basing this committee off of the best 4 teams, they are not one of the best 4 teams, and that's understandable. And I will agree with you on that. But they've never done that. The precedent was made, you kind of go off of resume, wins, head-to-head, blah, blah, blah. There's so many different things. Yeah, all this kind of stuff. And they met the criteria. The only thing they didn't technically meet, and they got them on the little cliff note, was that they had a player injured. And that is unprecedented. We've never seen that happen. I feel like they definitely saved their behinds having that in the system this year for them to put Bama in, and that's okay. Auburn? How was muffing a punt on the coach? It just happens. Hey, you know how many muff punts we saw yesterday? Like, I'm about to say,
Dennis, Michigan. You talking about the definition of muff punts, and they still
God Almighty. And they kept doing the same doggone crap the whole game. They changed the returner out and was still doing. It was killing me, Dennis. When they were calling fair catches within the 5-yard line instead of letting that thing bounce to the end zone. That crap was it was killing me, man. Good Lord. Georgia lost the SEC championship in 21 and won the Natty the same year. You're right.
Yeah, but it ain't Notre Dame. Notre Dame ain't the same. That's different. Notre Dame. No.
If Bama didn't let Michigan score at the end of the game, they would have won. This hypothetical logic of yours is horrible. It's football, Dennis. Mistakes are part of the game. You're correct. Mistakes are a part of the game. That's right. So, like we were kind of leading into earlier, though, I had Texas and Bama being in the championship game, and I had Bama getting their revenge. I'm obviously wrong. Bama's not in it. Texas isn't in it. It's Washington versus Michigan. I think, hold on, let me pull up I'm pretty sure Michigan is the favorite here, if I'm not mistaken. I think they're like a 4.5 point favorite. Let me look here.
Really? I predicted 3.5.
3.5.
That's what I predicted.
Yeah, it's 4.5. So wow. 4.5 point favorites here for Michigan. Yeah. And this one's going to be in Houston. So really no team has an advantage geographically, that neither of these states are near Texas. Let's see here. I'm reading the comment. Tell the committee that they thought since Jordan was hurt, that FSU wasn't good enough, and they were right. Yeah, Dennis, even since Jordan Travis got hurt, they still weren't good, man. I mean, they were good when Travis was. I don't know. It's annoying that they didn't make it because of that, but you have to let it go on that. Isn't one of the best 4 teams. You're right. They weren't. If Bama didn't get in, Georgia should have. Yeah, they were. Bama shouldn't have been in. It's fun. Dennis is cracking me up today. But the game's in Houston. Michigan's a 4.5-point favorite. I kind of agree with it. You said you kind of guessed this as well, that it would be at least a 3.5. They're a point higher than that. They're 4.5. The reason I kind of agree with it, I already believed in the Michigan defense, and Dennis has been talking about it too. He thinks that they're a good defense as well. I believe in that defense, but the offense gave me enough to where I think they can score maybe when needed. Oh man, this will be probably a pretty good game. I'm not gonna lie to you.
I'm excited.
Washington can put up some points,
Okay.
and Michigan's going to be tested defensively. It's going to be a matter, and Washington did enough defensively, last night that I think, hey, maybe they could get to the quarterback. Maybe they can affect this game. Maybe they can get some picks. Maybe they can do some good stuff. Because I mean, toward the end of that game, when it mattered most, they were making plays. They were tipping balls, getting sacks. That last play of the game where they went to A.D. Mitchell, that corner played it perfect and knocked the ball away. Like it was good play on both sides of the ball from Washington last night. I'm not going to lie to you. Obviously, game management wasn't the best in the world, but hey, that's neither here nor there. Michigan kind of did the same thing. Michigan about screwed themselves at the end doing all that timeout kneeling crap that they did. It just didn't make much sense.
That's another thing.
Yeah, it was stupid. It was very
both coaches, both Michigan and Washington at the end of the game. What are y'all doing?
Yeah,
like,
and
you can't get a game away.
But if I had to put my money behind one of these teams, I think it has to be Michigan. I feel like Washington winning it, it'd be a great story. Obviously, like I said, it wouldn't affect us recruiting-wise. They're on the polar opposite end of the country than us. They're not going to dip down into Georgia. That's selfishly why I would maybe want Washington to win. Michigan, I'm wanting Michigan to win. Yancey and Dennis know this. Jake Stursma, one of my best friends out of Howard Middle School. He's a big Michigan fan. I'd love for him to get him a ring. That'd be awesome. Great guy. Saw him celebrating with his baby on Instagram. So that's why I would probably root for Michigan. And I do think Michigan's going to win this one. The 4.5 points is a little, oh man, it's tough because I could see a close game here. We've seen some great semifinal games in the years, and the championship games maybe, not so much lately. Obviously last year, no, but the Georgia-Alabama game was pretty tight. Obviously the score didn't indicate that in the end, but if I had to pick here with the spread, against the spread, I will take Michigan to cover the 4.5 points and win this game. That's what I'm going to go with here. What do you say?
I'm taking Michigan in this one, okay? But it's not just good. This is another game, again, where I feel like this is going to be right down the middle. Washington, for one, and I have been on here multiple times, and I'm going to state it again. Washington is the best team in the best conference for this season. The Pac-12 was the best overall conference this season. They didn't technically, let me tell you about it, they didn't dominate it, but they won every game. They had a lot of close games. Their last 10 games have all been by one possession. If you want to talk about a game that gets down to the end of the game and it's tight, who would I give that advantage to? I probably slightly would give it to Washington. All right. But what I am going to say is a guy like Jim Harbaugh, man, he is coaching his butt off. The story, if anything, is more around Michigan, having their coach suspended at the beginning of the season, having to suspend it towards the middle of the season. We do this for Jim Harbaugh, Michigan, him crying, It's a great story overall. Them beating Alabama, them beating Ohio State. Michigan has, they've done it, man. And Jim Harbaugh, he know what it feels like to lose a big game. He lost the Super Bowl. That's the biggest game of them all in all of football. He lost the Super Bowl, and not only lose it, he lost to his freaking brother, his older brother. So, younger brother. So, he lost to John Harbaugh. So, this man is this is a great opportunity for me to get this back. And let me tell you something that J.J. McCarthy reminds me a lot like. He reminds me a lot like Alex Smith. When he used to, you remember when Harbaugh used to coach on the 49ers? Alex Smith used to never make he never made a lot of mistakes. He
very, very high. He was drafted very high coming out of college. He was supposed to be a real big guy. Didn't really do good until that year, though, right? If I'm not mistaken.
He was solid. He was decent.
He did
good to Jim Harbaugh.
He started doing good when Harbaugh got there, yeah.
He was able to use his legs. He could use his arm on the run. And very similar to J.J. McCarthy. J.J. McCarthy can use his legs.
He can.
I think a lot of
people didn't do it much last night, but when he did, it meant something.
He did it when it mattered. He's not going to be a guy that's like, I'm going to run all the time. He's going to run only when it matters. And he reminded me a lot like Alex Smith when he played. I like Michigan in this game. if I had to predict the score, I'm going to go 34-27. I think Michigan wins this game. I think Washington going to be able to put up points. But I think that Michigan defense, that pass rush is going to be able to get to Michael Penix. Now, if Washington is able to pick up the blitz and give Penix time, Michigan is going to be having some problems. And I think it's going to be some crucial problems. You got to remember, what was that wide receiver name for Washington? He was in the running.
They got a lot. Odunze, McMillan.
Denze, he was in the running for the best wide receiver of the year. And yesterday,
you should have won it if you didn't.
Yesterday,
who did win it?
When the guy from LSU won it, I thought.
Oh man, I mean, don't get me wrong. I like Neighbors. I don't know, man. That's kind of tough. Neighbors is good though.
Yeah. Or was it Marvin Harrison?
It could have been Harrison. That's hard to argue against Harrison.
Yeah. It was one of them, but it was those three. It was Neighbors, Harrison, and Marvin Harrison won it.
Yeah, he did. That's hard to argue.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to argue. I mean, it is what it is. But it was him, Neighbors, and the guy from Washington. They was in the running for it. So I like,
These two are cracking me up in the chat.
I know they're going at it, boy. But I'm going to go with Michigan. I think Michigan wins this game. And it's going to come down to a lot of the things that happen in the trenches. Washington running back might be out. He got hurt on the final few plays.
He did. And that almost screwed him. That almost screwed him,
man.
Because it's not that time. Like, I feel like if you're a coach now and you get to that end of the game, you're saying you cannot get hurt. You have to at least limp off the field. That way this doesn't happen.
Yeah,
that's got to be something coaches are looking at moving forward. If I have to put a score on it, I'm now starting to lean that Michigan doesn't cover, but they win. I'm going to go 24-21. I think this ends up being more of a defensive game than we're thinking. I think this turns into one of those. 24-21 Michigan is where I'm going to go.
Yeah.
So
Michigan.
That's my pick there. Last question I'll do here. Okay. And I've seen this one tossed around. Which year was better for semifinal games? The semifinals. Last year or this year? Last year you had Ohio State, Georgia in the Peach Bowl, and then you had TCU, Michigan, the upset of TCU over Michigan in the I can't remember what the game was, but it was a bowl game.
Or last year. I think it was one of them. Last year, TCU, Michigan, that score was 51-45. TCU, Michigan had came back. Michigan had a great chance to win the game. J.J. McCarthy could have drove down the field, but he threw a lot of interception, which was very uncharacteristic from J.J. McCarthy. And if anybody don't know, that's the only time J.J. McCarthy has lost as a starting quarterback in college. That's something to really, look at.
Crazy.
He has been dominant. Like I said, these last few years, I mean, this man has stepped up his game and have been a dominant quarterback. 26-1, on the verge of potentially winning 27 in the national championship. A lot of props to J.J. McCarthy. Look, I ain't gonna lie, we were on here, we were talking.
Cracking on him.
He was up in the running for Heisman because I surely did not think he deserved it at all with those 5 or 6 completions and they win the game. He's Heisman. No. I did not, but he has stepped up big in these games. 3 touchdowns for 227 yards, I believe, against Alabama. The biggest that drive down the field with the game on the line was so special, bro. Like they say, he looked very Brady-esque in that drive.
He did.
Boy, did
Ironically enough. So, you're saying last year's semifinals? Because that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, no question. The Ohio State-Georgia game, for one, top any one of these games. And then TCU and Michigan, if you want to compare that game to Washington, Texas, that surely topped it. Because that game was great. That was a great game.
But both years, great semifinal games. Let's see if we can get a good national championship game now between 1 and 2. Any last things you want to bring up here? I see Yancey and Dennis. This has turned into like a Jordan argument now. And don't get me wrong. I love some Michael Jordan, arguments. Torres and I, our early days of the podcast, we were getting into that. That was when Last Dance was coming out. We'll have to do we're going to be doing some NBA stuff in the future.
We'll be getting the NBA soon. We will.
NFL and college is winding down. It's winding down.
Next week, we'll definitely get into some more NFL stuff as the divisions are starting to really rack up. We got a lot of big-time division games. Heck, my Steelers still got a chance.
Yeah.
We don't know how to – like I say, I love Mike Tomlin. He wins. Look, I love winning. But either we win or we lose all the rest of our games. We got to stop being in the middle because we don't get no draft picks because of that.
Yeah.
We don't.
Yeah,
because of that.
it's true. It's true.
So
It's kind of like the Falcons. They were notorious for doing that kind of crap for a long, long time. So yeah, man. And I did see Dennis. He brought up he wants to see the Falcons get. I think it was
he wanted to
Jaden
see.
Daniels or Fields. I think is what he said earlier. I did want to. I wanted to see what he said on that. I think he said something like that. I don't know. I'm trying to find it now, but I think he said something about he wants to see Justin Fields or them draft Jaden Daniels, one of those two. Interesting stuff. We'll see. I mean, from what I'm hearing, Fields might stay. Yeah, yeah. He just said Daniels or Fields. Jane Daniels would be a good pickup. I saw people, saying, "Hey, how about we pick another left-handed Michael out of college? Kind of like Mike Vick." So
I know. I saw
could be something. So, man, any last things you want to spout about here before we close it up?
No, man, this is really good show, man. Thank you for everybody that
Yeah,
tuned
man.
in, all the comments.
Dennis and Yancey coming in
that,
clutch
that,
as
that's
always.
funny, man.
Keeper chiming in. Kobe chiming in. We love it, man. Jacob Killian, first time him coming in. Yeah, that was good. So
man, a lot of guys chime in, man. Definitely get really good thoughts. College football season has been great, man. It's been a really good season. And, now we're down to the national championship, and I feel like we're going to come down to a really good game. I think that's going to be a really good game. So
yeah, man.
anyway.
All right. Well, thank you guys out there once again for tuning into the live stream. If you're listening to this out on the podcast, we're out there on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere podcasts are located. You can go to the description, click in the link tree, and there's many different ways you can support the show. You can follow some different social medias, X, Instagram, Twitter, or not even Twitter because it is X now, YouTube, all that good stuff. Facebook, if you want to follow me here on Facebook, friend me on Facebook so you can see the live streams whenever they pop up. I know Tori shares it too. We appreciate all the support, and we're looking forward to a happy new year, a happy 2024. Now that we got a new year going on, this is like our fourth year doing this, Torres?
Fourth year.
Yeah,
We're on year 4. Yeah, we started in COVID of 2020. I never forget when Tyler asked me to get on the show for the first time, and then he did. I think he did one more show, and he was like, let's just do it all the time. I was like, of course, let's
Torres
do
was
it.
just a natural fit, man. He was a natural fit. I enjoyed the friendship we've formed. It's awesome. I mean, we were cool, but now I feel like we've gotten closer over time. That's awesome.
No, I really enjoy it, man. I really do enjoy it. I love the podcast. I always look forward to it. Because sometimes when I have to miss, and I'm like, man, I actually like to. There's something go on in sports. I definitely would love it, but yeah, man, I love it, man. I remember when we started with the Jones County list, and
that was fun. That was fun. The all-time Jones County team. Oh, good old days. Good old days.
Is this episode 234?
Yeah, 234 these things we put out. So, man, all right. Well, thank you guys for listening in. We appreciate it. And as always, we'll see you next time.
Boom, boom.